A very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining our special program brought to you by Shelter Incorporated. I'm thoroughly excited to be joined by our guest today in studio. I am joined by the Managing Director of Shelter Incorporated, Mr. Mende. Mr. Mende, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with property.co.zw. To get started, maybe you could tell us a bit about Shelter Incorporated and its role in the real estate market.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you to property.com for assisting us talk to the world. Shelter Incorporated has traveled a long journey from 1983. So mathematically, 1983 to today is 41 years on the road, and that road started from very basic requirements where the government of the day felt that there wasn't enough home ownership. So government came up with a law that empowered the homeowners in what we used to call townships. The likes of Highfields, Glenora, Glenview, Budiriro, Mfakos, those kind. In 1983, all those were owned by the state. So anybody who stayed in what we now call the high density, the former townships, were renting from municipality. So every month we used to run to the window and pay rent for the house in which we stayed. And that covered accommodation, rates, refuse, water, sewer, and all that. So government saw it in their wisdom that people needed to be empowered. They felt rightfully so that people should own these houses. And the simple reason was that an empowered people would be more responsible, and it would reduce the bill on the local authority because they will be looking after it. And you're spreading ownership, and you're spreading responsibility, you're spreading out accountability. So with that, we saw the sitting tenants becoming owners. And government obviously woke up surprised the next morning because suddenly the lodgers who were renting 1 room, 2 rooms here and there in those houses also wanted an opportunity. And they were queuing up at the municipality offices to see what opportunities were in store for them. It is with that the late Minister of Local Government and Housing, which is the late John Nkomo, decided on expanding the net. But he was clearly faced by challenges of capacity. You can imagine local authorities at a click of a finger were supposed to now accommodate everybody, and there wasn't enough stock. It'll be interesting, just to digress for a moment, to know that at a certain point in our history, I think it takes you back to about 1985, there were no new houses being built. Whether you were looking at the northern suburbs or the southern suburbs, there just weren't any. There was a culture of renting the existing. So, presented with this opportunity, the local authorities were overwhelmed. And the natural thing to do was for government to go to employers and say, listen, you are the ones who have the people that come to work. How do we accommodate them? And naturally, government said, look, why don't we give you an opportunity for employee-assisted housing? What that would mean is that the local authority would enlist employees of a company, allocate land to the employers, and the employers would service and build houses for their staff. Obviously, at a drop of a hat, this could not be accomplished, overnight. So it had its challenges, and I remember, we had a company called Siven Clothing, which was in the textile industry, and we put in, I think, 23 of our employees on the list to get these houses, and we were bundled into a group of employers. And I remember it was ZBC, Eternal, Edgar's, and 2-3 others, Metro Peach, who were given a piece of land in Glenview 2, I think, and Glenview 3. Here you are, go and build. Well, we knew nothing about this. We knew nothing about opening up roads. So we ganged up with a civil engineer, town planner, and we started, with baby steps to get this going. And happily, it got off the ground. But sadly, no sooner did it take off, did the tires run flat. Because not everybody had the capacity and the motivation to chase after what was required. Because on the one end, we needed to buy materials, we needed to hire trucks, we needed to hire graders, and we then, at home, we needed to make sure that our staff were making the monthly contributions. This was not happening for a variety of reasons. So staff started defaulting, and the syndicate was under threat. And if you look in the horizon, you will see that there were several syndicates that failed. I remember, off the top of my head, there was a syndicate that was started of financial institutions on Order Farm. And Order Farm is, just after waterfalls going into Chitungwiza, along the Mbudzi Road. That collapsed on its face flat because of similar challenges. In our situation, we found ourselves, I think we had about 500 stands, and this one had 30, 50, 20, and whatever. And the one who had 50 only had 5 who were able to pay up, and the whole thing became a bit of a nightmare. We quickly saw an opportunity as one of the players, and that's how we created our company. We created a company at the time called Mbare Development because we believed that this was going to go Harare-wide. And it was going to be a standalone business. So those are the origins of Shelter, and it is through Mbare Development with the passage of time that one day I was playing squash with a friend of mine, and he says, you know what, you are in the housing business. I have a shelf company in my drawer. And I said, what is it? And it had a shelf company called Shelter Incorporated, which is perfect for your business. Why don't you change your name to Shelter Incorporated? And the rest is history.
Oh, wow. You have mentioned significant growth and development in the property market. What are the current trends in the market, particularly in the residential and commercial sectors?
Well, the market is fascinating. I always take off my hat to fellow developers and what they come up with. And obviously, I can't take off my hat enough to West Properties. They have been very creative, very good, and very inspiring colleague in the trade. The trends basically are to modernize. The trends are to, high rise and move away from, the proliferation that we've seen in the last 10, 20 years, because clearly we need to keep land for agriculture. So trends are coming in those areas, and we now need to keep pace with designs that are pretty and attractive and interesting enough to customers. And as each day comes, it brings with it some challenges. People now want houses that have got piped music, piped Wi-Fi, and the list goes on. So it's quite exciting. I look at your generation. I can't wait to see you go into your own house and see what kind of house you're going to put up, because clearly it's going to be very different to the house that I put up when I was getting married.
Yeah, that is true. We are becoming innovative every day.
Very
but
much
like
so.
you mentioned, there are challenges that we're facing in the market. How best can we overcome these?
Well, we have a very interesting economy that is very dynamic, and we need to, unfortunately, the pace at which the economy is rolling over is not allowing us enough time to go under a tree and absorb it all. So unfortunately, on our feet, we have to create solutions. We have a number of challenges. The one challenge that is out there is land barons. You go out to set up a project, and before you know it, there is a bunch of land barons, and you're stuck. It slows down progress, and it frustrates progress. It frustrates your buyers. So that is an issue that needs to be resolved. And thanks to His Excellency the President, who has put his foot down and he said that land barons is not accepted and should not be tolerated. We hope that solves that problem. The next problem is capacity. Capacity. Do we have enough cement? Do we have enough bricks? Do we have enough foreign currency for bitumen and tar to tar the roads? Do we have enough finance for our customers? And not to mention the currency. We have got a challenge with our currency at the moment. Until there is a solution in the currency, one doesn't know, quite where we are going. But as realtors, we're not going to sleep. We have recognized this, and we are doing the best we can with the demands of the market to make sure that the wheels keep turning.
All right, so can you elaborate on the services that Shelter Zimbabwe is offering to its clients?
Shelter Incorporated is made up of 3 units. The one unit that everybody knows about and talks about almost defaults automatically is Shelter Zimbabwe, because it's been the longest round the block. Shelter Zimbabwe does housing of the living. So in Shelter Zimbabwe, you will buy a stand, you can buy a standalone house, you can buy a house in a gated estate, you can buy a flat in a block. Those are the products that we are offering. But we also have 2 other brands, which is the Etosha brands, Etosha Memorial and Etosha Gardens. Etosha Gardens being the one that is on the ground right now, which offer accommodation for the afterlife. Accommodation for the afterlife means basically accommodating our deceased, what we have traditionally called cemeteries. We don't like calling them cemeteries for a number of reasons. The first is that we want to demystify death. We do not believe that death should be as fearsome as it was when I was growing up. We all know that anybody who is born is going to die, so we may as well get prepared for it and find another way of dealing with it than just continue to be shocked one day into the next.
It sure is a one-stop shop. What differentiates Shelter Zimbabwe from the rest of the property companies in the market?
I guess we are all doing different things. Shelter has a long history in serviced and titled stands. And over time, it has done that on pay schemes. We've now taken that product to the next level, where we are supplying the superstructures, which is the house, the flats, and the like, in exactly the same framework, where we are doing it on pay plans. People pay a deposit and they pay the balance over time. Differentiate, I guess every house has got a different way of doing their hygiene. And I want to believe that what we do in our company is different to our colleagues. But I guess the biggest is the fact that we've been around the block for a long time. 40 years is not easy. And therefore, we are a tried and tested institution that can be trusted. Whereas around the block, we are seeing newcomers. A lot of them are falling flat because they're trying this, that, and the next thing, and it's not working. There are a lot of people out there who have lost a lot of money, both at home and in the diaspora. And I guess that would be the difference between Shelter and some of our colleagues. A lot of our colleagues, big and small, have tried things that don't work. And all we need to do is just drive around the cities, from the north to the south, east to west, and we will see failed projects. And we will see failed projects by big boys, not by little boys. I remember when the late Oliver Mtukudzi was still around, he used to joke about some of the houses that you find around where, if you go to sleep in the evening, you have to wake up in the middle of the night, go out and come back so that you can turn. You can't quite turn while you're in the house. So, these are the kind of things that you're finding on the market. And unless you deal with reputable organizations that have experienced, that have gone through there, you will lose money.
All right, so what are some of the recent stories or projects that Shelter Zimbabwe has undertaken that showcase its expertise?
Right. Our very first project, like I mentioned, started with Glenview 2 and 3 when we were a syndicate of employers. From there, we moved on to Glenview 7. From there, we moved on to Glenview 7 Extension. From there, we moved on to Railway Reserve. These projects were all in Glenview and Glenora. Railway Reserve is right behind the Glenora police station. From there, we moved on into Prospect, directly opposite Mbuya Dorothy Hospital. From there, as we speak now, we are in Apuji, which is in Adbeni, which is a blocks of flats. I think it's 7 blocks of flats. We are in Adelaide, which is in Ep1, the northern part of Ep1. We are in Rockview, which is also in the next level from Adelaide, also Ep1. There is a little story behind those 2 projects. About 8 years ago, we were approached by the commission that was running Ep1 at the time. And Ep1 needed to generate income. Because as you may know, Ep1 has got a background where the original settlements followed the Methodist Church. And therefore it was all and sundry that came there. From farm people to, people in the region that were coming from Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique to settle of little to no resources. So Ep1 found this a challenge because when the town was established, it had no income because these villagers, and that's all you could call them, had no source of income. They had no ability to pay rates. So the commission was very creative. It called us in and it said, listen guys, how can we solve this problem? We took a gamble. We spent some money on doing demographic study, and the demographic study told us, the kind of people that we were dealing with. And our answer back to council was, there's nothing you can do with these people. You will have to find social money somewhere to accommodate them. So they said, so how do we get around the problem? We need revenue. So we said, look, you seem to have more land. why don't you give us more land so that we can go and create new settlements that can be rated so that you have got income. That's how Adelaide and Rockview were created. Adelaide being the high density and Rockview being the middle density. So that's the background behind that. From there, we have got Chijanje, the controversial Chijanje that is, hitting the airwaves at the moment. For the last 4 years, we've been in and out of court with land barons that have been occupying that land, in all different forms and shapes. So that is another project we have got with 1,500. We expect to be going there with some peace, thanks to the courts, in the next couple of days. We have another one in Lendi Park in Marondera. We have another one in Winston Park and Paradise Park in Marondera. So those are our projects. We are doing a cluster development in Meyrick Park. And we're doing gated estates in Chijanje when we get round to it, because security has become a challenge across the world.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I look forward to hearing more about the future outlook of Shelter Incorporated. Thank you so much, Mr. Mende, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to take advantage of our social media platforms. You can send through your questions, comments, and contributions. That's the time that we've had. Pleasant view.